I'm Audrey Wilson, 32, and I just dropped $3,000 on what was supposed to be the New Year's party of the century at my downtown Chicago condo. I called Mom, bursting with excitement about my promotion and the celebration I'd planned. Her response? "Oh, honey, about that. You're not going to be able to have your party. Nathan and his kids are moving into your place." My brother always was the golden child, but this time they'd gone too far. Families are supposed to support each other, not take advantage. Little did they know what I had in store for them. Before I dive into this wild story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever dealt with entitled family members. Trust me, you'll want to see how this unfolds. Growing up in Oak Park, a middle-class suburb of Chicago, I learned early on that the Wilson family had an unspoken hierarchy. Nathan, my older brother by 4 years, was the firstborn son who could do no wrong. Melanie, younger than me by 3 years, was the baby of the family who needed constant protection. And me? I was the responsible middle child, expected to be self-sufficient while simultaneously supporting everyone else. Our modest 3-bedroom home became the stage for countless instances of unequal treatment. I still remember my 16th birthday when my parents promised to help with a used car like they had for Nathan. When the time came, Dad sheepishly explained they'd use the money for Nathan's college tuition instead. You understand, right? You're so good at saving anyway. Meanwhile, 2 years later, Melanie got not just a car but a brand new Honda Civic because the roads are more dangerous now than when you were learning to drive. Nathan had always been charismatic but irresponsible. In high school, he was the football star who barely maintained the GPA needed to stay on the team. Teachers loved him despite his mediocre performance because he could charm anyone with his easy smile and quick jokes. When he barely scraped into a state college, my parents celebrated like he'd gotten into Harvard. Meanwhile, I graduated valedictorian, earned a full academic scholarship to Northwestern, and got a lukewarm "we always knew you'd do well" from my parents. The pattern continued when Nathan dropped out after 2 years to find himself, cycling through jobs ranging from bartending to car sales to real estate, never sticking with anything long enough to build a career. At 25, he married Sophia, a sweet but naive woman who seemed to believe she could reform him. Their wedding was an extravagant affair that my parents drained their savings to fund. 3 kids followed in quick succession. Emma, Liam, and Mason, now 12, 9, and 7. Throughout their marriage, Nathan bounced between periods of unemployment and commission-only sales jobs, while Sophia worked as a nurse to provide stability. While Nathan was building a family on shaky foundations, I was methodically constructing my career. After graduating with honors in marketing, I started at Horizon Media as an assistant, working 60-hour weeks and eating ramen to save money. Every promotion came through sweat and strategic moves, not family connections or lucky breaks. 5 years ago, at 27, I finally saved enough for a down payment on my condo, a beautiful 2-bedroom with a view of Lake Michigan that I fell in love with instantly. The day I signed those papers was possibly the proudest moment of my life. My parents attended the small housewarming I hosted, but spent most of the evening talking about how Nathan was this close to a big break in commercial real estate. Diana and Marcus, colleagues who'd become close friends, were the ones who truly celebrated my achievement. They'd witnessed my dedication, staying late to perfect presentations and taking on projects no one else wanted. Diana, our creative director, had become a mentor, while Marcus from the analytics team had partnered with me on campaigns that drove unprecedented results for our clients. When Nathan and Sophia's marriage began unraveling last year, it wasn't a surprise to anyone except perhaps my parents. The final straw came when Sophia discovered Nathan had been hiding substantial gambling debts. She filed for divorce, and suddenly Nathan was facing the consequences of years of poor decisions. Through it all, I continued climbing the corporate ladder at Horizon Media. Last month, after successfully landing the Tucker Industries account, a client everyone said was impossible to get. I was promoted to marketing director. The promotion came with a substantial raise and greater visibility in the company. For the first time, I felt like my professional life was exactly where I wanted it to be. The New Year's party was meant to be a celebration of this milestone, my first time hosting colleagues in my home as their equal in leadership. I'd planned everything meticulously, catering from Chicago's best tapas restaurant, a bartender specializing in craft cocktails, and subtle but elegant decorations that would transform my already beautiful space into something magical for the evening. As I shared these plans with Diana over lunch, she raised her glass in a toast to Audrey, finally getting the recognition she deserves. If only my family felt the same way. The phone call that changed everything came on a Tuesday evening in early December. I was finalizing the menu for the New Year's party when my phone lit up with Mom's name. "Hey, Mom," I answered, excited to share details about the promotion I'd texted her about earlier. "Audrey, sweetie," she began, her voice carrying that forced cheerfulness I'd come to recognize as a prelude to unwelcome news. "How are you?" "Great. Did you get my text about the promotion?" "I'm officially marketing director now." "Oh yes, that's nice, dear." "Very nice." The dismissal was subtle but clear. "Listen, I'm calling about Nathan. The divorce was finalized yesterday." My stomach tightened. "Is he okay?" "Well, he's lost the house." Sophia's lawyer was just ruthless. After all he's been through, now he and the kids have nowhere to go. I sighed, already sensing where this was heading. That's tough. Has he looked into apartments? I could help him find something in his price range. Mom's laugh was brittle. Apartments? On what income? He's between jobs again, and with 3 children to support. Mom, your father and I would take them in, but you know our place is too small, and your father's back couldn't handle those stairs with all their things. The implication hung in the air for a moment before she continued. Your condo has that second bedroom, and you're hardly ever there with your work schedule. It just makes sense. I gripped the phone tighter. Mom, I have the New Year's party coming up. I've already paid the deposit, and it's important for my career, too. Oh, about that, she interrupted. You're not going to be able to have your party. Nathan and his kids are moving into your place. Not would you consider, or could they possibly, just a statement of fact, as though my home wasn't actually mine at all. Mom, that's not going to work. My condo barely fits me and my home office, let alone 4 additional people. Besides, I need my space for work, and the kids would. Family comes first, Audrey, she cut in, her voice hardening. Nathan needs support right now. The children need stability. Surely your party can wait. The conversation deteriorated from there, ending with Mom insisting we have a family meeting at their house on Sunday to sort everything out. That Sunday, I arrived at my parents' house determined to stand my ground. The familiar scent of Mom's pot roast filled the air, a manipulation tactic I recognized immediately, comfort food to soften my resolve. Nathan was already there, slouched on the couch with red-rimmed eyes that brightened considerably when I entered. Hey sis, he said, attempting a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Mom emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Audrey's here. Let's eat first, then we can talk. Dinner was a masterclass in emotional manipulation. Dad asked surface-level questions about my job while Mom served Nathan's second and third helpings, murmuring about how thin he looked. Melanie, who'd driven in from Milwaukee, kept giving me pointed looks whenever Nathan mentioned the challenges of single parenthood. After dinner, we gathered in the living room for what my mother called the discussion, but what quickly became clear was intended to be my surrender ceremony. It's just temporary, Nathan assured me, leaning forward with earnest eyes. Just until I get back on my feet. 3 months, tops. Where would the kids sleep? I asked, trying to be practical. I have 1 spare bedroom. The boys can share the second bedroom, Mom jumped in. Emma can sleep on the pull-out couch. It's just temporary, after all. And my home office? I need that space for work. Nathan waved dismissively. You can work at the dining table. Or better yet, stay at the office. You're always there anyway. I took a deep breath. Look, I understand you're in a difficult situation, but my condo isn't the solution. I've worked hard for my space, and I need it for my career. I'm happy to help you find something affordable, maybe even help with the security deposit, but typical Audrey, Melanie interrupted, rolling her eyes. Always about the career and the money. That's not fair, I protested, feeling the familiar frustration rise. I've earned everything I have. I'm offering to help, just not by giving up my home. Dad finally spoke up, his voice quiet but firm. Audrey, it's just for a little while. Nathan has nowhere else to go. What about a short-term rental? Or a hotel until he finds something permanent? I suggested. Mom scoffed. On what budget? He's paying child support now, and with no job. So I'm supposed to upend my life because Nathan lost his job again? The words escaped before I could stop them. The room went silent. Nathan's face crumpled in a display of hurt that seemed rehearsed to my cynical eyes. I can't believe you'd throw that in my face, he said quietly. After everything I've been through. Mom stood up, her expression thunderous. That's enough, Audrey. Family comes first. Your brother needs you, and those children need a roof over their heads. I didn't raise you to be so selfish. Dad nodded in agreement, Melanie glared, and Nathan looked at me with a mixture of expectation and entitlement that made my blood boil. In that moment, I realized I was outnumbered and outmaneuvered. If I continued to refuse, I'd be cast as the villain in the family narrative. Against my better judgment, I reluctantly agreed to a temporary arrangement, with the explicit understanding that Nathan would actively search for his own place immediately. As I drove home that night, the weight of what I'd agreed to settled on my shoulders. I'd have to reschedule the party, reorganize my space, and somehow maintain my sanity with 4 additional people in my carefully curated home. Little did I know how quickly temporary would transform into something else entirely. The morning Nathan and his kids moved in was chaos incarnate. What I'd expected to be a few suitcases turned out to be a small moving truck's worth of possessions. Boxes labeled Nathan's college stuff and kids' summer clothes suggested a stay far longer than the promised 3 months. Where should I put these? Nathan asked, holding a box labeled gaming setup. I stared at him. You brought your gaming console? He shrugged as if it was the most natural thing in the world. The kids need entertainment. Swallowing my frustration, I showed them around my once pristine space. The boys can share the guest room. Emma, you'll be on the pull-out couch in the living room. I need you all to respect my things and my space, especially my home office. I have important client calls, and I need quiet during work hours. Nathan nodded absently while the kids explored my condo like it was an amusement park. Mason, the 7-year-old, immediately pressed his chocolate-covered fingers against my floor-to-ceiling windows, leaving smudges on the glass that had been spotless that morning. Mason, please don't touch the windows, I said, trying to keep my voice gentle. Don't be so uptight, Audrey, Nathan chided. He's just excited about the view. By evening, my carefully organized condo looked like it had been hit by a tornado. Toys scattered across the living room floor, dishes piled in the sink, and somehow, sticky handprints had appeared on my white sofa. I retreated to my bedroom, the only space still under my control, and called Diana to explain why I had to reschedule the party. That's terrible, she sympathized. Can't they stay with your parents? Apparently not. Mom made it clear this was my family duty. How long will they be there? Nathan says 3 months, but I trailed off, already suspecting it would be longer. The first week was an adjustment period, I told myself. The second week would be better once everyone settled into a routine. But as days turned into weeks, the situation only deteriorated. Liam, the 9-year-old, had a habit of barging into my bedroom without knocking. Emma, at 12, had appropriated my expensive skincare products without asking. Mason continued his campaign to leave fingerprints on every surface in my home. Nathan, meanwhile, had made exactly zero progress in finding his own place. When I asked about his job search during week 3, he waved vaguely about leads and connections that never seemed to materialize into interviews. My work began to suffer. Client calls were interrupted by children arguing or Nathan's booming laugh as he played online games with friends. My carefully organized files were moved or misplaced. One morning, I discovered Mason had used my client presentation as a coloring sheet. "Nathan, this has to stop," I confronted him after finding my favorite cashmere sweater in the washing machine, now sized for a doll. "The kids need boundaries, and you need to be actively looking for a place." "I am looking," he insisted. "It's not easy with my credit score after the divorce. But I've got a promising lead on a sales position. Once that comes through, things will turn around." I'd heard this same promise for weeks. "And when will that be?" He shrugged. "Soon. These things take time." My parents were no help. Every time I called to express my frustration, Mom would remind me about family first and how the children need stability. When I pointed out that Nathan spent most days playing video games instead of job hunting, she defended him. "He's going through a difficult time. He needs to decompress." The situation reached a new low when I returned from a business trip to find my home office had been rearranged. My desk was pushed against the wall, my filing cabinet was missing, and a gaming console had been set up on my workspace. "Where are my files?" I demanded when Nathan finally emerged from the kitchen. "Oh, I put them in storage. The kids needed a place to play their games when it rains." "Your office has the best lighting." "Nathan, that room is off limits. I need it for work." He had the audacity to look offended. "You're barely here anyway. You were gone for 3 days, and when you are home, you're always working. The kids need space too, you know." That night, I overheard a phone conversation between Nathan and Mom that made my blood run cold. "Yeah, she's getting upset about the office thing, but she'll get over it," Nathan was saying. "I think we need to discuss a more permanent arrangement. The rental market is insane right now, and with my credit. Besides, the kids are settled in school now, and changing districts again would be disruptive." Mom's response was muffled, but Nathan's reply was clear. 6 months minimum, maybe through the end of the school year. She can afford it. "Did you see her latest promotion announcement on LinkedIn? Director level now." I stood frozen in the hallway, the realization crashing over me like ice water. This was never meant to be temporary. Nathan had no intention of leaving, and my parents were enabling him every step of the way. The next morning, I discovered the final straw. While searching for a missing client contract, I found Nathan had been through my financial documents. Statements were out of order, and my checkbook had been moved from its usual place. When confronted, he didn't even deny it. "I was just curious about your mortgage rate," he said casually. "Thinking about refinancing options if I buy a place." "If," I repeated. "I thought the plan was when, not if." He shrugged again, that infuriating, non-committal gesture I'd grown to hate. "Well, you know, with the market like it is." I called for another family meeting, determined to set things straight. This time, we gathered at my condo so my family could see firsthand how crowded and chaotic the situation had become. "This isn't working," I stated firmly. "Nathan hasn't made any progress finding a job or an apartment. My work is suffering, and my space has been completely taken over." Instead of support, I was met with a wall of resistance. "The children seem perfectly happy here," Mom observed, willfully ignoring the mess and tension. "Nathan needs more time," Dad added. "Jobs don't grow on trees." "Maybe," Melanie suggested with false innocence, "it would be easier if you found a smaller place for yourself. Something closer to your office, since you're always there anyway." I stared at her, stunned. "You want me to move out of my own home?" "It makes the most sense," Mom agreed readily. "Nathan needs the space for the children. You're just one person." In that moment, Looking at their expectant faces, the truth hit me with stunning clarity. To my family, I wasn't a person with needs and boundaries. I was a resource to be tapped whenever Nathan failed. My success wasn't something to celebrate. It was something to exploit. I'd never been a daughter or sister to them. I'd been a safety net, an insurance policy, a backup plan. And I was done with it. The realization that my family saw me as nothing but a convenient solution to Nathan's problems changed something fundamental inside me. Still, I tried one last time to salvage the situation, setting clear deadlines and boundaries with my brother. "You have 4 weeks to find a job and secure an apartment," I told him firmly. "I'll help with the security deposit if needed, but this arrangement ends on January 31st. Nathan nodded with feigned sincerity. "Absolutely. I'm on it." For exactly 3 days, he made a show of scrolling through job listings and apartment websites. By day 4, he was back to his gaming console, the job search forgotten. I was working late at the office one Friday, the only place I could concentrate these days, when my phone pinged with a text from my neighbor, Patricia. "Is your brother having a party? Lots of noise coming from your place. Thought you should know." My stomach dropped. I hadn't authorized any gathering. Rushing home, I walked into what could only be described as chaos. At least a dozen people I'd never met were scattered throughout my condo. Music blasted from speakers I didn't recognize. The distinct smell of marijuana hung in the air despite my strict no-smoking policy. And there, in the center of it all, was Nathan, laughing with a beer in hand as if he owned the place. "What is this?" I demanded, voice barely audible over the music. Nathan spotted me and grinned. "Hey, sis. Just a few friends over to watch the game. Want a beer?" I stared at the scene in disbelief. Someone had spilled red wine on my cream-colored rug. My carefully curated bookshelves had been rearranged to make room for bottles of liquor. And most horrifying of all, a man I didn't know was rummaging through my wine refrigerator, pulling out a bottle of Chateauneuf du Pape I'd been saving for a special occasion. "That's a $300 bottle of wine," I said, snatching it from his hands. The man looked at me like I was speaking a foreign language. "Nathan said help ourselves." I turned to my brother, fury building. "Everyone needs to leave. Now." Nathan rolled his eyes. "Don't be such a buzzkill, Audrey. It's just a little get-together. In my home, with my things. Without my permission." He laughed, addressing his friends. "See what I mean? Always so uptight about her precious things." Something snapped inside me. "Out!" I shouted, loud enough that the music seemed to dim in comparison. "Everyone who doesn't live here, get out right now." The party guests, sensing real anger, began to shuffle awkwardly toward the door. Nathan watched them go with an expression of amused embarrassment, as if I were a child throwing a tantrum. When the last stranger had left, I confronted him. "This is completely unacceptable. You can't just take over my home like this." "Technically, it's our home now," he replied with maddening casualness. "Mom said." "I don't care what Mom said. This is my condo. My name is on the mortgage. I make the rules." Nathan's amusement faded, replaced by a cold look I'd seen whenever he felt challenged. "Look, I get that you're stressed about work or whatever, but you need to lighten up. The kids and I need space to live, not just exist in your perfect little museum. If you want space, get your own place." That was the deal. The deal, he sneered, was family helping family. "But I guess your precious career and fancy apartment matter more than your own niece and nephews having a roof over their heads. Don't you dare use the kids as shields," I shot back. "This isn't about them. It's about you taking advantage, like you always have." His face darkened. "You know what? You don't need this place anyway. You're always working. Must be nice having nothing in your life but a job and expensive wine no one's allowed to touch." The cruelty of his words struck like a physical blow. Before I could respond, my phone rang, Mom's name flashing on the screen as if summoned by our argument. "Nathan just called me," she began without preamble when I answered. "He says you're threatening to throw them out over a little get-together?" I laughed incredulously. A little get-together? There were strangers in my home, going through my things. And I'm not threatening to throw anyone out. I'm enforcing the boundaries we agreed to. Boundaries? Mom scoffed. He's your brother, not some roommate. Family doesn't have boundaries. Family shouldn't take advantage either, but here we are. I'm disappointed in you, Audrey. I thought we raised you better than this. The irony was too much. Better than what? Better than expecting to be treated with basic respect in my own home? Better than wanting my brother to take responsibility for once in his life. He's going through a difficult time. He's always going through a difficult time. I exploded. And somehow, it's always my job to fix it. Well, I'm done. This arrangement isn't working. So you'll just put your brother and his children out on the street? Is that the kind of person you are? Her words were designed to wound, to press on the lifetime of conditioning that had taught me my needs came last. But something had changed in me, the spell was broken. I guess we'll find out, I said quietly, and hung up. That night, I couldn't sleep. The condo that had once been my sanctuary now felt like a prison. Every corner held evidence of the invasion, toys underfoot, dishes in the sink, the lingering smell of marijuana and spilled beer. At 2 a.m., I called Rachel, my best friend since college and the one person who had always seen through my family's dynamics. They've completely taken over, I told her, voice breaking. And now they're making me feel like I'm the unreasonable one for wanting my home back. Rachel's voice was clear and firm. Because that's how they've always operated, AUD. They take and take, and when you finally say enough, they act like you're the villain. Mom suggested I should move out, I admitted. Like I should be the one to leave my own home. And are you considering it? She asked carefully. The question hung in the air. Was I? Had I been so thoroughly conditioned to sacrifice for Nathan that I was actually contemplating giving up my home? No, I said finally, the word feeling like freedom. No, I'm not. Good, Rachel said. Because I think it's time you put yourself first for once. They're counting on you bending like you always have. What would happen if you didn't? What would happen indeed? As dawn broke, I lay awake, a plan forming in my mind. It wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming my life and my space. It was about finally breaking the pattern that had defined our family dynamic for decades. Nathan and my parents had pushed me to a breaking point, but in doing so, they'd inadvertently liberated me from the obligation to keep sacrificing. They'd shown their true colors so clearly that I could no longer pretend this was about family love or support. And with that clarity came a strange sense of peace. For the first time in my adult life, I knew exactly what I needed to do, not what would please my family or minimize conflict, but what was right for me. The decision made, I finally drifted off to sleep, more certain than I'd ever been. The next morning, I woke with purpose. Nathan and the kids had plans to visit my parents for the day, a small mercy that would give me the privacy I needed. As soon as they left, I pulled out my phone and made the first of many calls. Jessica, my real estate agent and friend, answered on the second ring. Audrey, how are you? How's that gorgeous condo treating you? That's actually why I'm calling, I said. I need to sell. How quickly can we list? Jessica, ever the professional, didn't miss a beat. Market's hot right now. We could have it listed by next week if you're serious. But what brought this on? You love that place. It's complicated. Family situation. I gave her a condensed version of events. Wow, she responded. Are you sure selling is what you want? Once it's listed. I'm sure, I said firmly. And Jessica? I need this handled with absolute discretion until the sign goes up. Next, I called my bank. The $3,000 deposit I'd placed for the New Year's party was substantial, but the event coordinator was sympathetic when I explained I had a family emergency. She agreed to process a refund, minus a small cancellation fee. With those calls made, I pulled up my laptop and began searching for short-term furnished rentals. I needed somewhere comfortable but flexible, a place to land while I figured out my next move. Within an hour, I'd scheduled 3 viewings for that afternoon. The first two apartments were adequate but uninspiring. The third, however, spoke to me immediately, a sunny one-bedroom in a luxury building with 24-hour security, a feature that suddenly seemed very important. The 6-month lease term was perfect, and I signed the paperwork on the spot, arranging to move in the following day. Back at my condo, I began the process of separating my life from the chaos Nathan had brought. I created a detailed inventory of my valuable possessions: artwork, electronics, jewelry, and my wine collection. Anything irreplaceable or particularly valuable would come with me. The rest could stay until the condo sold. I collected all my important documents, passport, birth certificate, financial statements, and property records, and secured them in a portable safe. My computer and external hard drives containing work projects were packed carefully into padded cases. Next came the more emotional task of selecting personal items, photographs, mementos, and the few family heirlooms I truly valued. As I wrapped my grandmother's china teacup in bubble wrap, I felt a pang of sadness. This hadn't been the plan. This condo was supposed to be my forever home, or at least a significant chapter in my life. But plans change when people show you who they really are. I called the utilities companies one by one, arranging to have all services transferred out of my name effective immediately. Electricity, water, gas, internet. All would continue for a brief period under the building's emergency provisions, but would require new accounts within days. The cable company asked if I wanted to transfer service to my new address. No, I said, a small smile playing at my lips. I won't be needing it. Throughout the afternoon, I methodically packed my life into suitcases and boxes, taking only what mattered most. The furniture could stay. Most of it had been chosen to match the condo's aesthetic anyway. As evening approached, I called Rachel. It's done, I told her. I've signed a lease on a new place and listed the condo. How do you feel? She asked. I considered the question carefully. Lighter, I finally said. Like I've set down something heavy I've been carrying for years. When are you telling them? I'm not, I replied. I'm leaving a letter. Nathan returns tomorrow with the kids. By then, I'll be gone. Rachel was silent for a moment. You don't think you should tell them face to face? Why? So they can manipulate me into changing my mind? So Mom can cry and Nathan can make me feel guilty about the kids? No. I've made my decision. Okay, she said. Do you need help moving your things? Yes, please. Can you come over early tomorrow? I want to be out before they get back. The next morning dawned clear and cold, a perfect January day for new beginnings. Rachel arrived at 8 a.m. with coffee and determination. Together, we loaded my car and her SUV with the carefully packed boxes and suitcases. As Rachel carried the last box out, I stood in the center of what had been my sanctuary. The space still held echoes of my careful decorating, but it was now overlaid with Nathan's careless presence, toys scattered across the floor, dishes in the sink, video game controllers on the coffee table. I placed the letter I'd written on the kitchen counter, held down by my spare set of keys. It was neither angry nor accusatory, simply factual. Nathan, asterisk. I've moved out and listed the condo for sale. My attorney will be in touch regarding the closing process once the buyer is found. All utilities have been transferred out of my name, so you'll need to establish your own accounts immediately if you wish to continue having services. Asterisk. This isn't a sudden decision, but the culmination of a lifetime of patterns that are no longer sustainable for me. I wish you and the children well, but I need to prioritize my own well-being now. Asterisk. The furniture and basic household items remain for your use until the condo sells. Please treat them with respect. Asterisk. Audrey, asterisk. Simple. Direct. Final. As I turned to leave, Jessica texted to confirm the for sale sign would be installed that afternoon. Perfect timing. I took one last look around, not at what was being left behind, but at what I was walking away from. The expectation that my needs would always come last, the assumption that my success was a resource to be tapped whenever Nathan failed, the belief that family obligation trumped personal boundaries. I locked the door behind me, knowing I wouldn't use that key again. Rachel was waiting by the cars. Ready? I nodded, surprising myself with my lack of tears. More than ready. As we drove away, I didn't look back at the building that had been my home. Instead, I looked ahead, to the life I was choosing, one where my worth wasn't measured by my usefulness to others, but by the respect I showed myself. It felt like freedom. The first call came 3 hours after I'd settled into my new apartment. Nathan's name flashed on my phone screen, but I let it go to voicemail. Then came the texts, a rapid-fire barrage of disbelief and anger. WTF, Audrey? Is this some kind of joke? Call me right now. They're putting up a for sale sign. I muted the notifications and continued unpacking, arranging my cherished possessions in the sunlit space of my temporary home. It felt peaceful here, the silence a luxury after weeks of chaos. My phone lit up again, Mom this time. I declined the call, but she immediately called back. And again. And again. On the 5th attempt, I finally answered. How could you do this? She demanded, voice shaking with anger. You've left your brother and his children with nothing. That's not true, I replied calmly. They have a roof over their heads until the condo sells, which could take months. That's more than enough time for Nathan to find a job and secure his own place. The utilities are already shutting off. The internet is gone, and the electric company says they'll disconnect service tomorrow if no one sets up a new account. Yes, I transferred everything out of my name. Nathan will need to establish his own accounts. With what money? She cried. He doesn't have the deposits they're asking for. I felt a twinge of guilt, but pushed it aside. That's not my problem anymore, Mom. Nathan is an adult. He needs to figure this out himself. I can't believe you're being so cold, she said, voice lowering to that disappointed tone I'd heard my entire life. This isn't how we raised you. No, I agreed. You raised me to believe my needs didn't matter if Nathan needed something. You raised me to be the responsible one while letting him off the hook for everything. Well, I'm still being responsible for myself for once. The line went silent for a moment. Then, your father wants to speak with you. Dad's voice came through, gruff and uncertain. Audrey, this isn't like you. You've always been the level-headed one. It was the first time he'd acknowledged any positive quality in me in years, and it was still framed as a criticism of my current actions. Dad, where were you when Nathan took over my home office? Where were you when Mom suggested I should be the one to move out of my own condo? This isn't a sudden decision. It's been building for years. We can work this out, he said, sounding old and tired. Come over for dinner tonight. We'll talk it through as a family. No, I said gently but firmly. I'm not coming over to be outnumbered and manipulated again. My decision is final. After I hung up, the calls continued, Nathan, Mom, Dad, even Melanie. I silenced them all, needing space to process the magnitude of what I'd done. Around dinner time, a text from Melanie caught my eye. Just so you know, Nathan is telling everyone you had a mental breakdown. Mom's in tears. Dad's talking about hiring a lawyer. Is this really worth destroying the family over? I laughed out loud at the irony. The family was only destroyed when I stopped playing my assigned role. As long as I sacrificed without complaint, everything was fine. The next morning, Jessica called with an update. So, there's a situation at the condo, she began carefully. What kind of situation? Your brother was uncooperative when the potential buyers came for a showing. He told them the place wasn't actually for sale, that you had no right to sell it, and that they were wasting their time. I sighed. I was afraid of this. What do we do? I've contacted your attorney as you suggested. She says since you're the sole owner, you have every right to sell regardless of who's living there. However, she recommends sending Nathan a formal notice to vacate to establish a paper trail in case this gets complicated. Do it, I said without hesitation. The formal notice apparently sparked a new wave of family outrage. Nathan called my office so many times that our receptionist had to block his number. Mom left tearful voicemails about family loyalty and how I was just like my father's sister, a woman who'd apparently cut ties with the family before I was born for reasons never explained to me. Curiously, it was Melanie who reached out with something resembling rationality 3 days later. "Can we meet for coffee?" her text read. "Just us. No ambush, I promise." Against my better judgment, I agreed, choosing a cafe near my office rather than revealing my new address. Melanie looked different somehow when she arrived, less confident in her righteousness, perhaps. She ordered a latte and fidgeted with the sugar packets before speaking. "I talked to Sophia," she said finally. This wasn't what I'd expected. Nathan's ex? Why? I wanted to understand what really happened with the divorce. Nathan's story didn't add up. I waited, sensing there was more. "She said he gambled away their savings, Audrey. Twice. She bailed him out the first time because of the kids, but the second time was too much. And he wasn't between jobs when they split. He was fired for showing up drunk." "I'm not surprised," I said quietly. "The thing is," Melanie continued, "I always believed him. About everything. I thought Sophia was the problem, that you were being selfish." She trailed off, looking ashamed. I'm starting to see things differently. It was the closest thing to an apology I was likely to get from my proudest sibling. "What happens now?" she asked. "The condo sells. Nathan finds his own place. Life goes on. And what about us? The family. I considered this." "I don't know, Mel. I need time and space to figure that out." She nodded slowly. "I understand. For what it's worth, I think you did the right thing. It just took me a while to see it." As I left the cafe, I felt a subtle shift in the family dynamic. For the first time, someone had broken ranks to acknowledge the dysfunction. It wasn't reconciliation, but it was a crack in the united front that had always stood against me. The next week brought another development. My attorney called to inform me that Nathan had consulted a lawyer of his own, hoping to block the sale. "It's a nuisance tactic," she assured me. "He has no legal standing. Your name is the only one on the deed and mortgage. He can delay things, but he can't stop the sale. And if he refuses to leave, then we begin formal eviction proceedings." But let's hope it doesn't come to that. Whether it was the formal legal language, the realization that I wouldn't back down, or simple exhaustion, something changed after that. Nathan's aggression gave way to a quieter resentment. He began allowing showings of the condo, though Jessica reported he made sure to mention all the problems with the place to potential buyers. Despite his efforts, offers started coming in. The Chicago real estate market was hot, and my centrally located, well-appointed condo was desirable even with an unwanted tenant. 6 weeks after listing, we accepted an offer above asking price from a young professional couple who didn't mind waiting until closing for occupancy. The sale was proceeding, and Nathan would have no choice but to find alternative housing. As the closing date approached, Nathan finally called with a different tone. "I found an apartment," he said without preamble when I answered. 3-bedroom in Rogers Park. "The landlord is willing to work with my credit situation." "That's good," I replied neutrally. "I need help with the security deposit," he added, a familiar request wrapped in a new context. I paused, considering. "I'll pay it directly to the landlord," I said finally. "Not to you. Send me their information." It wasn't generosity driving my offer, but practicality. The sooner Nathan was out, the smoother the closing would go. And perhaps, in some small way, it was a final gesture to the sister I had been, the reliable one who always helped. The difference was that this time, the help came with clear boundaries and on my terms. The week before closing, I met Rachel for dinner to celebrate. To freedom, she toasted, raising her glass. To boundaries, I countered, clinking my glass against hers. "Have you spoken to your parents lately?" she asked. I shook my head. "Not directly. Mom still leaves voicemails occasionally, but they're less angry now. More sad. Dad sent an email asking if we could put this unfortunate situation behind us once the sale is final. And will you? I considered the question carefully. Not in the way he means. I'm not going back to being the family safety net. But maybe, with very clear boundaries, some kind of relationship is possible. I don't know yet. Rachel nodded understandingly. You don't have to decide everything now. That's the beauty of where you are. You get to choose what comes next. She was right. For the first time in my life, I wasn't reacting to my family's needs or expectations. I was creating my own path, setting my own terms. It wasn't revenge that had driven my decisions, though Nathan might see it that way. It was self-preservation, self-respect, and finally, after 32 years, self-prioritization. And whatever came next would be on my terms. 6 months after the day I walked away from my condo and the toxic family dynamic it had come to represent, I stood in the center of my new home. A beautiful 3-bedroom townhouse in Lincoln Park with a small garden and enough space for both comfortable living and a proper home office. The proceeds from selling my condo had allowed me to make a substantial down payment, and my continued success at work made the mortgage comfortably affordable. More importantly, this space was entirely mine, chosen with only my preferences in mind. I'd spent the morning arranging flowers and putting final touches on the decorations for tonight's event, the New Year's party I'd been denied a year ago, now reimagined as a housewarming celebration. The catering would arrive in a few hours, and the bartender was already setting up in the kitchen. My phone chimed with a text from Diana. Need any last-minute help? All under control, I replied. See you at 7. The doorbell rang, and I opened it to find Rachel holding a bottle of champagne and a small wrapped package. I know the party isn't until tonight, but I wanted to bring this over early, she explained, handing me the gift. I unwrapped it to find a beautiful brass door knocker engraved with my name. For your new beginning, the card read. Rachel, it's perfect, I said, hugging her tightly. Thank you for everything. I wouldn't have made it through the past year without you. Sure you would have, she countered with a smile. You're stronger than you knew. I just reminded you of that fact occasionally. As we shared a glass of coffee in my sun-filled kitchen, I reflected on the tumultuous months since I'd made my stand. The condo had sold without further drama, though Nathan had waited until the last possible day to move out. True to my word, I'd paid his security deposit directly to his new landlord, our last financial entanglement severed with that transaction. My relationship with my family had entered a new phase, one characterized by careful distance and slowly rebuilding trust. Mom had eventually stopped leaving guilt-laden voicemails and begun sending tentative texts instead, asking about my work and my new place without making demands. Dad, in his reserved way, had reached out with an email that had surprised me with its self-awareness. I've been thinking about the patterns in our family, he'd written. I didn't realize how much we'd come to depend on you handling everything Nathan couldn't. It wasn't fair. It wasn't quite an apology, but from my stoic father, it was significant. Melanie and I had begun rebuilding our relationship over occasional brunches where we carefully avoided family drama in favor of reconnecting as adults with separate lives. She'd confided that her own marriage was struggling, but unlike in the past, she wasn't expecting me to solve her problems, just to listen. As for Nathan, we remained distant. He'd sent a Christmas card with a photo of the kids and a stiffly formal note about how they were adjusting well to their new school. I'd responded with gift cards for the children and a neutral greeting. It wasn't reconciliation, but it was civil, a vast improvement over the chaos of a year ago. Professionally, the boundaries I'd established in my personal life had extended to my work as well. I'd learned to say no to projects that would overextend me, to require respect for my time and expertise, and to advocate for my ideas with confidence. The results had surprised me. Rather than hindering my career, these boundaries had enhanced it. 3 months ago, I'd been promoted to VP of Creative Strategy, a role I might have been too busy handling family crises to pursue in my previous life. Earth to Audrey, Rachel said, waving a hand in front of my face. Where'd you go just now? I smiled. Just thinking about how much has changed in a year. For the better, she noted. Definitely for the better. As evening approached and guests began to arrive, I felt a deep sense of contentment. Diana and Marcus came bearing wine and congratulations on the beautiful new space. Colleagues and friends filled the rooms with laughter and conversation. Even my new neighbors stopped by, welcoming me to the community. At midnight, we raised our glasses in a toast to the new year. To fresh starts, I said, and to recognizing our own worth. Later, after the last guest had departed and I was curled up on my sofa enjoying the peaceful aftermath, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. The pain had been real, the decisions difficult, but the outcome had been worth every moment of discomfort. I'd learned that sometimes the most painful experiences lead to the most necessary growth. That setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's essential. That family should lift you up, not drain you dry. Most importantly, I'd learned that I deserved to be the protagonist in my own life story, not a supporting character in someone else's. As I drifted off to sleep in my new home, I felt at peace with my choices and optimistic about the path ahead, a path I had chosen for myself. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members who took advantage of your generosity? What helped you find the strength to stand up for yourself? Share your experiences in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video if Audrey's journey resonated with you, subscribe for more stories of personal growth and empowerment, and hit that share button if you know someone who needs to hear this message. Remember, sometimes the most difficult decisions lead to the most beautiful new beginnings. Thank you for watching, and I wish you the courage to prioritize your own well-being in the year ahead.